from Being Mommy with Style, and today I wanted to talk about something that I hope will be helpful if you have maybe previously been a stay-at-home mom or taken off some time from work and you're looking at going back to work, specifically if you have kids. And this is something that I abstractly thought about before I went back to work, but I really couldn't put exact numbers on it, although I could kind of approximate. But I thought I would share some of our exact numbers of the cost of going back to work. To me, to go back to work, it literally costs money when you think about it, and kind of go over what some of those are, just to hopefully help you be more prepared if you're thinking about going back to work, or you're curious, or what things that you maybe can think about to start preparing. So first of all, these are all things, I don't really think I had any surprises per se when I went back to work. I think I was probably surprised maybe a little bit by how much some of it racked up, but my kids were also older. This is one of the big reasons why I waited, other than the fact that I wanted to be at home with them when they're home all day long. But this is one of the big reasons why I waited until they were both in school to go back to work. So the childcare cost of when kids are in daycare, you know, if they're there all day long, is a lot, and they're younger, is a lot more expensive than either just after school care, or even summer care for older kids is less expensive than like baby or toddler care. So that was one big thing. And then obviously for me, I was very fortunate to have the option to stay at home when they were babies and toddlers, and I could, you know, stay with them during those months. I did try for a short, brief time period to, they did do Mom's Day Out, so we did do that. They did do preschool. But I did try at one point, because the times didn't work out for one of Isabella's soccer teams, like toddler soccer. And so I did try briefly, like use any daycare for like temporary care to watch Natalie while I took Isabella to soccer. And it was a disaster because, you know, with daycares, they pick up stuff constantly. It was fairly expensive. It was more expensive than like a Mom's Day Out. And so that did not last very long. We made it through the soccer season, but I didn't do it again. And so I know now, I mean, I'm glad I tried it just to know, but it was kind of a disaster, to be honest. Natalie would pick up something and then she would get sick, and then, you know, obviously then we couldn't go to these soccer or swim lessons that I had planned anyways. And then I think she would pass it to Isabella, and it was just, you know, kind of a full round robin. Anyhow, so you have that when they're younger too, because usually by the time they're older, of course, they're getting stuff in school and passing it around. But, you know, they're a little bit more, hopefully, resilient by that point too. But back to the cost of going back to work. So I went back to work when Natalie started kindergarten, so they're off at school pretty much all day long doing their thing. They do a lot of after school activities at school and that sort of thing. So I basically have the whole bulk of the day where I can work. The one big expense that I did know that we were gonna have, and I kind of pre-planned for this, is the after school care. So we do, there's a lot of different after school care options. Usually there's something that's, you know, on site at the school. There's usually a couple facilities that are around. And so for us, we just went with the one that was easiest and closest, and that they could still do after school clubs there at the facility and then go to their after school care afterwards. So the price for that, to give you an idea, for 2 kids per week is $110. So I added all this up, and obviously this is stuff that you potentially have to do for taxes anyways, although a lot of that changed last year, so I don't really know. But they do send you like a statement. So I added this up, and there are 37 weeks of school, and that's taking all the vacation weeks out, you know, taking spring break week out, 2 weeks for Christmas, a fall break, etc. So 37 weeks of school times $110 a week is $4,070 just for after school care, that's pretty low for just after school care. So that's annual for just, you know, a few hours after school, whatever, 5 days a week. Then during the summer weeks, we obviously both work full time, so we have the option of taking hours off here and there. But the one thing I will say when you sign up for like these childcare things is it's pretty much all or nothing. You either sign up for it and you hold the spot and you're paying the full amount, or you're not and you're staying home all summer long. So there's really not a lot of in between. So last summer, it was kind of weird because there's 8 weeks of summer that the childcare is offered, and then there's a couple weeks on the other end that you kind of have to do some sort of other childcare, which I'll get into that in a minute. But for just the kind of regular week-long summer care, I added it up per week. It's about $270 or $300 a week. So it's around $2,160 or $2,200 a week. Not a week. $2,200 a year. So right there you've got $4,000 and $2,200. So you're about at $6,200 for the year, just for like your basic childcare costs. For all of there's a couple extra camp times of weeks that weren't covered with the summer camp, and we did like a couple like week-long overnight camps. I estimated that we probably spent around $1,000 on those, just kind of quickly doing the math. So that's up to about, what, $7,200. And then this is extra, but just to kind of give you an idea, and they're probably already doing these, we spend about $1,000 a year, well, actually, no, it's probably more than that, because it's about $700 a semester, $700 to $800 a semester for just like the after-school clubs, the fees for that. And that's very different, because here in this state, you have to pay like, you know, fees that can vary anywhere from like $55 to $275 for an after-school club. Whereas in Michigan, we didn't have fees like that. They were kind of just offered through the school. So that's completely different down here. So it is what it is. And that may vary state by state. But when I added it all total up, oh yeah, here we go. Clubs, 1,600, extra camps, 1,000, and then the 2 overnight camps were 1,000. So when I added all this up, it totaled up to about $9,830. So about $10,000 right off the top on just childcare. So just having them a place to go for a few hours, really, a lot of times that their schedule's not covered by school. So it's about $10,000. And that will vary, you know, place to place. Obviously, we live in a pretty economical state, so I would assume that a lot of other places that probably be more expensive, but this is the only state that we've had to deal with it in. So it's around $10,000 to, I'm sure, upwards of $20,000 or $30,000 for childcare when they're not in school, if you have school-age kids. If they're younger, it's probably way more than that. Or I know it's way more than that. So then the other expenses, and I thought about these, but I thought I could kind of put some numbers to them, are when you're working, I spend more on like, obviously professional clothing, professional shoes, you know, accessories, things like that. I tried to kind of put a number on it, probably about $100 a month just dedicated to that. So Sephora stuff, you left all that out. I would already be buying that. You know, so just professional gear, heels, blazers, you know, probably roundabouts $1,200 to $1,500 a year, roundabouts, on clothing, shoes, accessories, exclusively for work that I would not have bought otherwise. So what are we up to now? 10,000, 15. So we're about, you know, around $12,000. I also would say that I probably spend a little bit more on upkeep. And what I mean by that is like I get SNS nails now. I just a little bit more concerned about having that stuff look nice. Whereas before I would just do that as a treat, like a pedicure or get my nails done. And I would just do it whenever, or if I was going on vacation. But now I try to kind of keep that up, like upkeep wise, that I wasn't really concerned about when I was a stay-at-home mom. Because like I said, it was more just a treat and I wasn't worried about the timing of it. But keeping that up, I probably spend a little bit more on that. So all total, I think I estimated that was about $300 a month with the clothing, the shoes, and the upkeep. So it's about $3,600 a year. So right under like $14,000 a year. And then the other thing that you might spend more on is lunches. So obviously when I was a stay-at-home mom, I would make lunch. Kids and I would all eat the same thing. It's pretty much rolled into the grocery bill. I am not very good about bringing my lunch. That is one way you could cut this out. But I got in the bad habit, and I've talked about this in other videos, where I would just go out, grab lunch somewhere. Even if I'm running an errand at Target, on my lunch hour, I'll pick up lunch there. You know, they have like a little lunch section. It's actually quite good. So I guesstimate that this is about $50 per week times, well, I guess you could just say, you know, 50 times, $50 a week times what, you probably work at least 48 weeks out of the year. So that's about another $2,400 on food. That you could probably make that a lot lower. But if you get in the bad habit of going out and getting lunch, and I do go out to lunch with friends a lot at lunchtime, and you know, so it's a social aspect too. But that is that. So that's about $14,000 plus what you might spend additional on lunches. So you're not seeing any sort of lunch items in grocery hauls for me. And we spend about the same amount on grocery hauls, so it's extra. So that's about $14,000 plus $2,400 is about, we'll just say 25 to round it up, because obviously some of them are more expensive. So that's about $16,500. So that is the cost, the expense Literally haven't even got into anything travel-wise, which obviously work would cover your travel, but any additional expenses that you would have for traveling or just making it more convenient. Like I'm gonna be starting to travel a lot more in the upcoming year, and I'm gonna buy myself a, you know, e-reader to take on the plane with me because I'm gonna be doing a lot more plane flights and stuff like that. That's an expense of going back to work. Might I have bought that for myself anyways? You know, of course, maybe. But it's different than when you're a stay-at-home mom, because I probably wouldn't even consider that as much because I wouldn't be on a plane as much if I was a stay-at-home mom. So those are some of the things that kind of the cost of going back to work. And obviously you have the time cost and opportunity cost. But that's not really what I was making this video about. I literally wanted to talk about specific numbers, like just hard and fast numbers. And I really think that we live in one of the cheapest states to live in. There's probably a couple that are a little bit less expensive than us. But everything is less expensive here. So like our car insurance is 1/3 the price it was in Michigan. Our taxes are like 1/10 of what they were in Illinois and Michigan. Like, I wish that was more of a joke than it was, but they're really, really low. Like, we pay less in taxes on our house than like my parents pay on their like ranch bungalow and stuff like that. So anyhow, point being, the cost of living is fairly low here. So if you're in a state like Illinois or Michigan, I'd say Michigan's kind of like even under Illinois. Illinois would be more expensive. Childcare, I would say, would probably be double or triple that amount. So just to kind of give you an idea, and I'm sure you know your own state where they kind of fall on, you know, the rent scale and all that. To give you some idea, I think rent around here, if you're renting like your average 3-bedroom, it's probably around anywhere from $1,200 to $1,800 a month. So obviously if you're in New York or Chicago, that would be upwards of $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever it is. You're gonna know for your own state. So that'll give you a point of comparison. But anyhow, I wanted to kind of do this because I thought about this a lot going back to work, like just trying to mentally plan. Because obviously, sure, you're bringing in an income, but actually a lot of it's going back out if you were solely at home before and you're kind of saving all that expense. And I also tried to think about it the reverse. And if you come up with anything, let me know. But I tried to think about, is there any costs that we reduced by me going back to work as well? Like, were there any costs that we incurred from me being a stay-at-home mom, other than the opportunity cost of me not going out and having a career and that sort of thing? And I actually couldn't come up with any. I really tried to think about this. I was like, is anything more expensive? Because I really probably use my car about the same amount, so the same amount of gas and everything. You know, I'm driving back and forth to work. This is why gas is not on this. If you don't drive that much as a stay-at-home mom, or you don't have a vehicle, you know, some people only have one vehicle and you have to get another vehicle to go back to work, that would be an added expense for you, for your cost of going back to work. So I would add that to your sheet. But you know, I already had a vehicle. I was already driving, you know, back and forth to do errands a lot. So I'd say that's kind of a wash for me. I use about the same amount of gas. Yeah, I really couldn't think of anything. So if you're a stay-at-home mom and you think of something that is actually a, you know, an expense that's not time cost or opportunity cost, because obviously that's a separate video. I'm literally talking financials here. But I really couldn't think of any other than potentially if you didn't have a vehicle and had to get one, that'd be an additional one, insurance-wise and all of that. But that is kind of what I came up with, the cost of going back to work. I would be interested for you to share down in the comments below what your experience with this has been. You know, for me, I kind of mentally planned it out and, you know, had an idea of what we would be incurring and all that sorts of things. So none of it really came as a shock, other than I feel like this past summer, I mean, this is what I sat down and I did, you know, like the rough math. I feel like we spent like between $5,000 and $7,000 on childcare the past summer, but they did a couple overnight camps that were like extra. So I counted for a couple of those, but I just guesstimated those costs. I think they were actually more expensive than what I put on here, but those were elective. So, you know, they didn't have to do those. So this is just, you know, the cost of going back to work that's not elective necessarily. But let me know if you have any questions down below. Feel free to share your experiences. I hope this is helpful because I remember trying to look this up when I was going back to work. I'm a planner. I like to plan these things, you know. I like to have an idea. And I really couldn't find a lot on it other than maybe a couple articles. So that's been my experience with it, and of course your mileage will vary based on your location, but hopefully this was helpful in some aspect, and I will see you in another video very soon. Thanks for watching and have a great day.